And Senator Portman, we got into this issue before. Republicans, too, have played this game about the CBO and when it supports what they're saying or not saying. But they are the arbiter for good or ill. And they're an arbiter that's raising caution about doing a lot of this stuff. And now the administration's firing all cylinders. What do you make of this?
Well, first of all, they are the nonpartisan group that crunches the numbers. They do use some of those Keynesian models that your last guest didn't like. But what they've said basically is Obamacare hurts the economy because it's going to result in fewer hours worked, which is the equivalent of 2.5 million jobs being lost in the next 10 years. They have said in that same report, which got a lot less play, that another $10 trillion will be added to the debt in the next 10 years. And then in the 10th year, by the way, we're going to be paying over $800 billion a year in interest payments.
To say nothing of the minimum wage push.
And then recently they said today, you know, gosh, if you did minimum wage, one impact is going to be you'll have fewer jobs. I mean, it doesn't come as a surprise to you or to me or to economists who've looked at this in the past. Even Christina Romer, the former chair of the President Obama CEA, Council of Economic Advisors, said, you know, this is uncertain what it'll do to jobs because...
But what do Republicans do in response, Senator? If the president and the vice president are going to respectively double down on this, either more spending, still go full speed ahead with this minimum wage hike, the CBO estimates be damned, still go full throttle on health care, all these critics be damned. Maybe they see something none of these groups or you or your Republican friends do.
I think everybody in America sees it. It hasn't worked. I mean, that's the bottom line. You talked about the stimulus earlier. They tried. They used liberal policies that said, let's spend, 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 as you said. And actually, the unemployment rate today, which is about 6.8% versus the 5% that they said it would be, is misleading because if you had the same labor participation rate, in other words, people in the workforce that you had when stimulus was enacted, the unemployment rate today would be 10.8%. So think about that. Instead of 5%, we're at 10.8%.
Well, they have come back, Senator, as you know, and argue, well, we're doing a lot better than we were right after the meltdown, and stimulus is a big reason. You say...
Well, you spend $1 trillion, you're going to have some impact, but the fact is you use their own metrics, their own measurement of what it would do, and it's nowhere near what they promised. And in fact, you've got millions of Americans who are out of work who otherwise would have a job. So look, they've tried it, it didn't work. Let's try something different. Let's actually help stimulate the economy through pro-growth policies. Let's do something to help people who are unemployed. Right now,
but do you think they're trying to goad you into a fight, Senator? You individually? They're trying to say, you know, that, look, Republicans say no to extending unemployment. Republicans say no to hiking the minimum wage. Republicans say no. So they might know the facts are in your favor, but they want to come around and say, look at Senator Portman. He's the guy who says no.
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, there's no question about it.
So how do Republicans put a nice face on no?
Well, first of all, Obamacare is very unpopular, so they're trying to change the subject, and you can't blame them. And they're trying to change the subject from this weak economy, the weakest economic recovery since the Great Depression, as you know. Republicans have to say we have a better way, and we do. We actually want to get people back to work. That's why we're for being sure people have the skills they need to access the jobs that are out there, not just getting another check, but actually help them to be able to get employed. That's why we believe that we ought to be doing pro-growth tax reform, regulatory relief, the things that actually create jobs.
Is that slipping away with this president, though? That opportunity? It's
slipping away this year. Yeah. I do think if we get a Republican majority in the Senate, that he'll be back at the table.
You think that's going to happen?
I think it's likely that it'll happen at this point. I mean, if the election were tomorrow, I think it would happen.
You don't think Tea Partiers and mainstreamers are at war with each other? It's not going to happen?
Well, our party's pretty unified right now, and part of the reason we're unified is because of the things that President Obama is doing, including taking away the legislative prerogative to himself. So, look, I think we have the math in our favor this year. We have some great candidates. There's a very good chance we'll get a majority in the Senate. That could bring you to the table.
You've grabbed defeat from the jaws of victory before you.
That's true. We're sometimes able to do that, aren't we, as Republicans?
Yeah. But look, you don't think it's going to happen this time?
I certainly hope not for the sake of the country, because I think the issues that you and I talk about a lot, the economic growth issues, the entitlement issue, the debt and deficit issue generally, these are not being resolved. We're just kicking the can down the road. We're not providing the kind of economic growth we need to help people to get a job. We're also not providing the kind of growth we need to have the revenues to deal with our historic levels of debt and deficit. So I certainly hope that we can change the dynamic in Washington, D.C. If we don't, the country is going to be poorer for it. We're mortgaging our future, and the CBO has made that very clear in their reports.
Senator, thank you very, very much. We will need a lesson on the right and left on money in, money out. It's all about that.
Thanks, Neil. Good to be